War was not new to the human soldier. He had seen battles before. He had seen fire in the sky and blood on the ground. But this war was different because this time he was not fighting alone. Beside him stood an alien warrior, tall, graceful, with silver eyes that never showed fear. Her name was Liara, and she was more than a partner. She was his shield, his blade, and his friend. The battlefield was a ruined city, towers broken like teeth, smoke rising like dark clouds, machines of war crawling through the streets. The enemy was stronger, faster, and endless. But the soldier and Liara fought as one, he with his rifle, she with her twin blades that cut through steel like cloth. Every time he fell back, she was there. Every time she stumbled, he caught her. Together they were unbreakable. Other soldiers whispered about them. They said the human and the alien were cursed or blessed, because every mission they returned alive. When squads vanished, when captains fell, they still walked back covered in scars but still breathing. Some said the human had been chosen by fate. Others said Liara had sworn an oath too deep to break. But for him it was simple. He trusted her and she trusted him. The enemy pushed harder that day, shadows filling the streets, the roar of machines shaking the ground. The soldier fired until his rifle burned hot. Liara moved like light, blades flashing in the smoke. And for a moment victory seemed close. They pushed the enemy back, step by step, breath by breath. Then came the explosion, sudden, merciless. The ground split and fire rose high. The soldier was thrown against a wall, his ears ringing, his body broken. And when his vision cleared, he saw her, Liara, standing between him and the fire, her silver eyes burning brighter than ever. She was hurt, her armor shattered, blood dripping from her side, but she did not fall. The enemy poured forward, dozens, hundreds, their weapons aimed at him, and she stepped in front of it all. "No," she whispered, voice steady. "Not him." She moved faster than he had ever seen, blades cutting through the air, her body moving with desperate strength, every strike tearing enemies apart, but every strike also costing her. Her wounds grew deeper, her steps weaker, and still she fought. The soldier tried to rise. He tried to reach her, his voice cracked. "Liara, stop, please." But she did not hear, or maybe she did, but chose to ignore, because she had made her choice long ago. At last, the wave of enemies slowed. The street silent except for the hiss of fire. Liara stood tall for one last second. Her silver eyes soft now, gentle. She turned her head to look at him. "You must live," she said, her voice like a fading flame. "Promise me." Then her knees buckled. Her blades fell and her body collapsed into the dust. The soldier crawled to her, his hands shaking. He held her face, but her eyes no longer shone. He felt the world tear apart inside him. All the battles, all the victories, none of them mattered, not anymore. He pressed his forehead against hers, his voice breaking. Why not me? Why not me instead? The city was still burning. The war still raging, but for him, time had stopped. The soldier who never cried now wept in silence. The bond that had made him strong was gone, and all he had left was pain. Yet deep inside, something else stirred, a fire that would not die. Her sacrifice was not the end, he felt it. Though he could not explain why. Destiny had stolen her from him, but destiny was not finished. And as the smoke rolled through the streets, the soldier swore one thing. He would fight on, not just for the war, not just for survival, but for her, for Liara, for the promise he had no choice but to keep. The soldier returned from the battlefield, but he did not return whole. His body carried scars, yet it was his heart that carried the deepest wound. Liara was gone. Her sacrifice burned into his mind like a brand that would never fade. Every step he took without her felt heavy. Every breath without her felt shallow. He walked among his unit, but silence followed him. The others looked at him with respect, with pity, with fear. They had seen warriors die before, but not like that. Not with such fire, such devotion. They whispered that he was cursed, that anyone who fought beside him would meet the same fate. But he did not care for whispers. He only cared for the echo of her last words. "You must live." Nights became his enemy. He closed his eyes and saw her silver eyes staring back at him. He heard her voice not in comfort but in farewell. He would wake drenched in sweat, fists clenched, chest aching, and sometimes he would whisper into the empty dark, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." But the dark never answered. The war did not stop for grief. Orders came, missions continued, and the soldier obeyed. He fought like a machine, his aim perfect, his movements sharp, but his heart was cold. He no longer laughed, no longer spoke much. He became a shadow among men, yet stories spread. Soldiers in other squads spoke of him. Some called him the ghost human, because he fought like one already dead. Some called him the survivor because fate refused to take him. Even when death stood close, but he rejected all names. He was only what Liara left behind. Nothing more, nothing less. Weeks passed, and the battlefield shifted. The enemy grew bolder, their attacks sharper, their machines faster, and whispers began of new reinforcements arriving. A fresh group of alien warriors among them. A name stirred. A warrior who looked like Liara, moved like her, but burned with an anger far brighter. The soldier did not believe it at first. He did not want to believe. He told himself it was just talk. Soldiers clinging to hope in a war without light. But when the day came, when reinforcements arrived, he saw her, and the world inside him shook. She stood tall, armor shining through scratched from travel, her face familiar yet different, her eyes not silver calm but silver fire, her steps sharp, her presence demanding. And when she looked at him, it was not with trust, not with friendship, but with something closer to rage. He froze, heart pounding, his breath caught. For a moment it was as if Liara stood before him again, alive, breathing, whole, but it was not her. He knew it, he felt it. This was not Liara. This was someone else. She walked up to him without hesitation, her gaze cutting through him. "You fought with my sister," she said, her voice heavy with both pain and anger. "You stood with her when she fell." The soldier could not speak, words caught in his throat. He could only nod slowly, painfully. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tight. "Then you know why I am here. I will fight where she fell, I will take her place. And I will not stop until the enemy is buried in fire." He looked at her, at the weight in her stance, at the fury in her tone, and for the first time since Liara's death, he felt fear. Not fear of the enemy, but fear of history repeating itself. "You should not," he whispered, his voice low, almost broken. "You do not know what this war takes. You do not understand how it burns everything." But she stepped closer, her eyes locked on his, her voice sharp. "Do not tell me what I do not know. I lost her too. She was my blood, my sister. I will not stand back while you fight in her place. I will fight beside you, and if you refuse, I will fight alone." The soldier's chest tightened. The words tore through him. She was not Liara, but in her voice, in her fire, he felt the same unyielding will, the same refusal to break. He wanted to protect her, to stop her, but he also knew he could not. She was her own flame, her own warrior. Destiny had brought her here, just as it once brought Liara to him. And as the sky roared with distant battle once more, he realized something. His wound would never heal, not with time, not with silence, not with denial, but perhaps, just perhaps, fate had given him a path, a dangerous path, a painful path, but a path forward. He did not know if he could walk it. He did not know if he could bear it, but when he looked at her, Liara's sister with fire in her eyes, he knew one thing. The war was not finished with him yet, and neither was destiny. The camp was quiet that night. Only the hum of machines and the crackle of distant fire filled the air. The soldier sat alone, staring at the dirt, his mind heavy with memories he wished he could forget. Then he felt eyes on him, sharp and unyielding. He turned and found her standing there. Liara's sister, her name was Saris, though he had not spoken it yet. Her presence was fierce, her shoulders squared, her gaze locked on him with a force that made him feel like he was back on the battlefield. He wanted to look away, but he could not, because in her face he saw echoes of Liara, and it twisted something deep inside him. "You fought with her," Saris said, her voice low but firm. "You stood by her when she fell. You watched her last breath." The soldier's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it, but the truth burned too deep. "Yes," he whispered, his voice dry. "I was there." Her silver eyes flared, brighter than the fire around them. "Then you know the promise she carried. She fought not only for the war, but for me, for our people, for you, and now she is gone. And I will not stand idle while her memory fades." He looked at her, his heart torn between grief and fear. "This war takes everything, Saris. It will take you too. I cannot watch another," his voice cracked, words breaking under the weight of pain. But she cut him off, stepping closer, her voice sharp like a blade. "Do not mistake me for her. I am not Liara. I do not fight with calm. I fight with fire, I fight with anger, and I will not ask your permission. If you refuse to stand beside me, I will fight alone." "But I will fight." Her words struck him like a blow, firm, unshaken. For a moment he saw Liara's spirit within her, but wrapped in a storm of rage. He knew this path would lead to ruin if she carried only anger, and yet he also knew he could not stop her. The next day, orders came, a mission into enemy lines. Dangerous, uncertain, and Saris demanded to join. The commanders hesitated. They looked at the soldier. They trusted his judgment, but his silence gave the answer. She would go. On the march, Saris walked ahead, every step sharp, every glance daring anyone to question her. The soldier followed behind, his eyes never leaving her, not in distrust, but in fear of losing her too soon. When battle came, it came fast, shadows rising from the ruins. Enemy machines roaring forward, the soldier moved with precision. His rifle steady, his aim perfect, but Saris charged like fire unleashed. Blades slashing, her voice echoing with fury. She cut through enemies with no fear, but also with no caution. The soldier cursed under his breath, chasing after her, covering her blind spots, saving her from shots she never saw. His heart pounded, his mind screamed. This was not how Liara fought, this was chaos. Rage without balance. At one point, an enemy nearly struck her from behind. The soldier dove forward, dragging her down. The blast tore the ground where she had stood. She snarled at him, shoving him back. "Never save me again," she hissed, her eyes burning with anger. "I am not her. I do not need you to shield me." He froze, her words cutting deeper than any blade. And in that moment he understood. She did not want his protection. She wanted his respect. She wanted to fight beside him, not beneath his shadow. The battle ended with smoke and silence. The enemy driven back, their unit standing bloody but alive. Saris stood tall, her armor cracked, her face streaked with dirt, but her eyes still fierce. She looked at him once more, voice low but sharp. "If you cannot see me for who I am, then stay out of my way." The soldier said nothing, his heart heavy, his mind torn. He wanted to protect her, but he also knew she was right. She was not Liara. She was Saris, and her path was her own. That night, as the camp settled again, the soldier lay awake. Staring at the stars, he thought of Liara, of her calm strength, and then of Saris, her fire, her fury. And he wondered if fate had given him this challenge not to protect, but to learn, to fight again, to trust again, yet deep inside, he feared one truth: if he failed to understand her, if he failed to walk beside her, then her fire would consume her, and he would lose her too. The stars offered no answer, only silence, and in that silence he swore to himself he would not let her fight alone. Not out of pity, not out of grief, but because destiny had bound them now, and he could not turn away. The morning came heavy with smoke. The air tasted of iron and ash. Soldiers prepared for another strike, and in the middle of the camp stood Saris, her silver eyes sharp, her blades resting against her back. She waited without fear, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The soldier stood nearby, adjusting his rifle, his heart heavy, for today would be the first time they went into battle together as partners. The mission was clear but dangerous. A convoy of supplies had been stolen by the enemy, hidden deep inside the ruins of a collapsed city. Without those supplies, their front line would starve. The commanders chose Saris and the soldier to lead a small strike team, a task that demanded speed, trust, and unity, but unity was what they lacked most. When the march began, Saris walked in front, her steps sharp, her head high. The soldier followed, his eyes scanning every shadow, his thoughts torn between duty and fear. He remembered Liara's calm movements, the way she balanced rage with focus. But Saris was not like that. She burned with fire, and fire was dangerous if left unchecked. Hours passed before the ruins came into view, towers broken like shattered teeth, streets choked with dust and silence. The enemy was hiding inside, waiting like wolves. The soldier signaled the team to spread out, but Saris ignored the signal. She stepped forward, her blades ready, her voice low. "We go in now." The soldier grabbed her arm, his voice firm. "Wait, we scout first. Rushing in blind will get us killed." She pulled her arm free, her eyes flashing. "Your way cost my sister her life. I will not repeat it." His jaw tightened. Her words hit like a blade, but there was no time to argue. The enemy had already seen them. Shadows moved, weapons rose, the ambush began. The street exploded with fire and smoke. Enemies pouring from the ruins, the soldier dropped low, his rifle roaring, each shot precise, each movement controlled. Saris charged forward, blades flashing, her body moving like lightning. She cut through the first line of enemies. Fearless, unstoppable, but reckless. The soldier cursed under his breath, covering her with fire, but she moved too fast, too wild, leaving herself open again and again. He saved her once with a shot, twice with a dive, and each time her anger grew. "Stop protecting me," she shouted over the roar of battle. "Fight with me, not for me," her words echoed. and for a moment he faltered, his rifle lowering because she was right. He was not fighting with her. He was fighting like he still carried Liara at his side, cautious, careful, protecting. But Saris did not want that. She wanted a partner. Still, old instincts clung to him, and in the chaos of the fight, his hesitation nearly cost them both. A machine dropped from the ruins, its weapon aimed at Saris. The soldier shouted her name and threw himself forward. Pushing her aside, the blast struck near them, the shockwave tearing the ground. For a heartbeat he thought it was over, but when the dust cleared, he saw her standing, her eyes burning with fury. She stepped close, her blade dripping with enemy blood, her voice sharp. "Do that again and I will leave you behind. I am not her." "I do not need saving." The words cut deep, but there was no time for grief. The enemy pressed harder. The team was breaking, and the soldier knew they would not survive like this, not if they kept fighting apart. He forced himself to breathe, to let go, and he called out to Saris, his voice firm, "Then show me your way." For the first time she paused, her eyes narrowing. Then she nodded, sharp and quick. Together they turned, their movements clashing at first, then slowly. Like two rivers finding the same path, they began to flow. He fired at what she could not reach. She cut down what slipped past his aim, their rhythm clumsy but building. The battle dragged on, but the tide began to shift. Enemies fell one by one. The convoy was reclaimed. The team stood alive though battered, and in the end the ruins grew quiet. The soldier lowered his rifle, his body shaking, his breath heavy. Saris wiped her blade, her silver eyes still fierce. She stepped closer and stared at him. "You fight better when you stop looking behind," she said, her voice softer now, though still edged with steel. He met her gaze for once without words, because she was right when he fought with her. Not for her. They were stronger, not perfect. Not balanced yet, but stronger. That night back at camp, the soldiers whispered of the battle, of how the human and the alien sister fought side by side, not with grace, not with calm, but with fire and steel. Some said it was chaos. Others said it was destiny. But the soldier only sat in silence, staring at the fire, thinking of Liara, thinking of Saris, and of the path they now walked. He did not know where it would lead, but he knew one truth. They were bound now, not by choice but by war, and war did not forgive. Days turned into weeks. The war moved like a storm across the stars, and the soldier and Saris were thrown into mission after mission. At first they clashed more than they fought. He still carried the memory of Liara. Cautious and careful, she carried only fire, driven by rage and loss. But battle after battle began to shape them, like iron hammered into steel. The first missions together were chaos. Saris charged ahead, fearless, reckless, blades cutting through the air while the soldier tried to hold the line, covering her with precise shots, shouting warnings she ignored. Again and again he thought she would fall. Again and again she rose, her eyes burning with defiance. But in every clash he noticed something. She was not careless, not truly. She was testing him, pushing him, forcing him to break the chains of fear that bound him. One night after a battle, the soldier sat alone cleaning his rifle. The firelight flickering against the metal, Saris walked over, dropping her blood-stained blades beside him. She looked at him for a long moment before speaking. "You fight like a man afraid of ghosts," she said, her voice steady but sharp. He looked up, tired. "And you fight like someone who wants to die." Her jaw tightened, but she did not argue. Instead, she sat across from him, her gaze fixed on the flames. "I fight with anger, yes. But anger is not weakness, it is the memory of loss. It is the fuel that keeps me moving. Without it, I would have nothing." The soldier stayed quiet, his chest heavy. He wanted to argue, to tell her anger would burn her away. But he saw something in her eyes, not just rage, but pain, a wound that matched his own. And for the first time he understood. They were not so different. The next battle tested them again. Their squad moved through the ruins of a space station, dark corridors filled with echoes, enemies waiting in the shadows. Saris went ahead, blades flashing. The soldier covered her. At first their movements clashed, but then something changed. He stopped trying to pull her back, and instead matched her pace. She struck fast, and he struck where she left openings. She dove into danger, and he followed, not to shield her, but to strike with her. Slowly the rhythm grew. Their fight became sharper, tighter, and their enemies fell faster. One soldier watching whispered, "The human fights like one of them," and the words spread like fire. After the battle, Saris looked at him, her breathing heavy, her armor cracked, and for the first time her expression softened. "You are not afraid anymore," she said, almost like a question. He met her gaze, his voice low. "I am still afraid, but I'm not running from it," she nodded once, a flicker of respect in her eyes, and walked away, leaving him with a strange feeling in his chest. Not grief, not rage, but something else, something harder to name. As missions passed, they grew closer. Not in words, but in battle. Trust built in the fire of war. When she leapt forward, he no longer hesitated. When he called out, she no longer ignored. They moved not as strangers bound by fate, but as partners shaping their own path. Yet even as walls broke between them, others began to build outside. The commanders noticed their growing strength. Whispers spread through the camps. Some soldiers admired them, others feared them. Some said they were unstoppable. Others said they were dangerous. Together they carried a weight heavier than either could bear alone. One night, as the stars burned cold above, Sarah sat beside him without a word. For a long time they watched the fire, the silence heavy but not hostile. Finally she spoke, her voice quieter than before. "I used to hate you," she admitted. "I thought you let her die, that you failed her, but now I see it was not weakness, it was sacrifice. And maybe I hated you because I hated myself for not being there." The soldier swallowed hard, his voice rough. "I would have given anything to change it, but she chose. And I could not stop her." Saris looked at him, her silver eyes softer than he had ever seen. "Then maybe it is not about stopping. Maybe it is about carrying it together." The word struck him deep. Breaking another wall inside, for the first time since Liara's death, he felt not only the weight of loss, but the strength of sharing it. Their bond did not erase the pain. It did not erase the past, but it gave them something new, a way to move forward together. The next morning, when the alarm of battle rang again, they stood side by side, blades and rifle ready. The soldier glanced at her, and she gave the smallest of nods. Not fire, not rage, but trust, and in that moment he knew. They were no longer bound only by grief, but by choice. The war never slept. It only shifted. New missions rose like endless waves, and the soldier and Saris found themselves called again, this time into enemy territory deeper than ever before. Whispers spread through the camp. The enemy was planning something, a strike that could shatter their defenses. The mission was to stop it. But no one knew what awaited in the dark. The journey began in silence. Their squad moved across broken ground, the air thick with smoke. The ruins of old cities stretched like bones around them. The soldier walked close to Saris, his rifle tight in his hands, her blades gleaming faintly in the dim light. They had grown stronger together, sharper, but even now he felt unease stirring inside. By nightfall, they reached the canyon, black walls rising high on both sides, the perfect place for an ambush. The soldier raised his hand, signaling caution. The squad spread out, eyes sharp, weapons ready, but the silence was too deep. "Too heavy," Saris whispered, her voice low. "They are here waiting." She was right. The ground shook, the shadows split. Enemy machines rose from the cliffs, weapons glowing, soldiers pouring down like rain. The canyon became a cage. The trap had been sprung. The first wave came hard, energy blasts lighting the night. The squad scattered. Returning fire, Saris charged, her blades cutting into the enemy ranks. The soldier followed, his rifle roaring. Together they carved through the ambush, but the enemy was endless, wave after wave pressing them deeper into the canyon. The soldier shouted orders, trying to hold the team together, but the enemy pressed from all sides, and soon the fight turned into survival. Saris fought like fire, her strikes fierce, her voice sharp as she called out, "Do not fall! Stand with me." But even her fire could not hold back the flood. Then it happened. A blast struck near them, throwing Saris across the rocks, her body slamming against the canyon wall. She coughed, blood spilling from her lips. Her armor cracked, her silver eyes still burning but dimmer now. The soldier's heart froze. For a moment the battlefield around him vanished. He saw only her, wounded, broken, just as Liara had been. Memory crashed over him like a storm. Liara's fall, her last breath, her last words. And now Saris lay before him the same way. "No," he growled, his voice breaking. "Not again. Not her." He threw himself forward, his rifle blazing, tearing into the enemy with furious precision. He moved faster, harder, his body fueled by rage and fear. Bullets and blasts rained around him, but none touched him. He reached Saris, kneeling beside her, his hands shaking. She pushed at him weakly, her voice rough. "Leave me, finish the fight." But he shook his head, his eyes burning. "No, not this time. I will not let history repeat. I will not lose you too." He pulled her up, supporting her weight. firing with one hand while dragging her back. The enemy closed in, shadows pressing closer, but he refused to fall. Every step was fire, every shot a vow. Ceres leaned against him, her breath ragged. Yet even in her pain she whispered, "You are stubborn, good," he said through clenched teeth. "Because I am not letting go." The canyon roared with battle. But slowly, painfully, they pushed through. The squad rallied around them, soldiers forming a wall, covering their retreat. And together they fought until the ground was littered with fire and steel. When at last the enemy pulled back, the canyon lay silent again. Only smoke and bodies remained. The squad gathered, bloodied but alive, and in the center stood the soldier, holding Ceres upright, her eyes half closed but still burning faintly. That night, as medics worked, the soldier sat beside her. His hands still trembling, he stared at her face, so much like Liara, but not Liara. And he whispered, voice heavy with vow, "I will not lose you, not to them, not to fate. Never." Ceres opened her eyes slightly, her voice weak but steady. "Then stop fighting the past, fight with me, not against ghosts." Her words sank deep, and he realized she was right. He could not carry her as a shadow of Liara. He had to see her for who she was, Ceres, not a memory, not a replacement but her own fire. The trap had nearly broken them, but it had also shown him the truth. He could not protect her by clinging to the past. He could only walk beside her into the future. And as the stars rose above the smoke-filled canyon, the soldier swore silently. He would not fail again. The canyon battle left scars. The squad limped back to camp with fewer soldiers than before, and Ceres carried fresh wounds across her body. But her spirit did not break. If anything, her fire burned brighter. The soldier stayed close by her side, refusing to let her slip into silence. He cleaned her blades while she healed. He stood guard when she slept, and in those quiet hours, something unspoken grew between them. Not love, not yet, but trust. The kind that only war could forge. But destiny was not finished with them. The enemy had suffered a loss, yet they were far from defeated. Scouts brought grim news. The enemy's strongest commander had arrived on the front, a being feared by both humans and aliens. A warlord who commanded legions like rivers of fire. His presence meant one thing. The final clash was near. The commanders called for volunteers, a strike team to cut the warlord down before he could crush their forces. Many hesitated, but Ceres did not. She stepped forward without pause, silver eyes fierce, blades in hand. "I will go," she said, her voice ringing across the hall. The soldier rose beside her, his rifle across his back, his voice calm but unyielding. "Then so will I." The night before the mission, they sat together under the stars. The camp quiet, the fire low. Ceres spoke first, her tone softer than he had ever heard. "Do you ever think of her still, of Liara?" He nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the sky. "Every day. But when I fight with you, I see not her. But you, I see fire, I see strength. I see a path forward. She gave her life to protect me. And now I will honor it by protecting what she left behind. Not her shadow, but you." For a moment, Ceres's eyes shimmered and she looked away, whispering, "Then we fight together, not as memory, not as ghosts, but as ourselves." The battle came at dawn. The warlord stood upon the ruins of a fallen tower, a massive figure clad in black armor, his voice booming across the battlefield. A challenge, a promise of destruction. The enemy surged like waves around him, endless and merciless. The soldier and Ceres charged together, their squad at their back. The clash shook the ground. Fire lit the sky. Every step was death. Every breath was pain, but together they carved a path. The soldier's rifle precise, Ceres's blades unstoppable, their rhythm sharp now, honed by every wound, every scar, every loss. At last they reached the warlord, his blade the size of a tree, his strikes shaking the earth. The squad scattered, unable to stand against him. But the soldier and Ceres did not fall back. They moved as one, dodging, striking, covering each other. The warlord's power was overwhelming, but their unity was stronger. The warlord swung, the soldier blocked with his rifle, the weapon shattering under the force. Ceres leapt high, her blade striking his armor. Sparks flying, the warlord roared, knocking them back, but they rose again, side by side, refusing to break. The fight dragged on. Each strike heavier than the last. The soldier bled. Ceres staggered, yet still they fought. And in the final moment, when the warlord raised his blade for a killing blow, the soldier stepped forward, drawing the strike, holding it with every ounce of strength, his voice a roar. Now Ceres. Now she moved like fire unleashed, blades flashing, driving deep into the warlord's chest. silver eyes blazing as she screamed, "For my sister, for our people." And with one final strike, the warlord fell, his armor cracking, his body crashing to the ground, the battlefield silent. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the enemy broke, their lines shattering. Fleeing into the smoke, victory rang across the ruins. But for the soldier and Saris, the world was quiet. They stood side by side, breathing heavy. Staring at the fallen giant, Saris turned to him. Her eyes still fierce, but softer now. "She trusted you for a reason," she said. "And now I see it too." He looked at her, his chest heavy, but not with grief this time. With something stronger, something steadier. "I lost a partner," he said, voice steady. "But I gained a sister." Her eyes shimmered, and she nodded once, not in sorrow, but in respect. Together they turned toward the horizon. The war not over, but the path ahead clear. They would fight, not as shadows of the past, but as warriors of the present, bound not by blood, but by destiny. And as the sun broke through the smoke, painting the battlefield in gold, the soldier knew this truth. Liara's sacrifice had not ended his story. It had only begun it.